Being caught with a love letter resulted in my uncle being called in. That evening, he pulled out his belt, demanding I replicate the letter verbatim. Arch your back. Tell uncle, what does "bro is so good" mean? I buried my head in the pillow, each breath shaking, left to his mercy. Seeing my distraction, he deliberately thrust harder. Is he better, or am I? 1. The moment Dominic Reed appeared in the doorway of the office, I knew I was screwed. This is so explicit, the homeroom teacher hissed, especially between two boys. Dominic must have come straight from a board meeting, dressed in a black suit, every button fastened. Hearing the teacher's last sentence, his eyes narrowed, and a humorless smile played on his lips. There must be a misunderstanding. Elliot, my nephew, is known for skipping class and getting into fights, but he's never crossed any real lines. I rolled my eyes, thinking he should have kept quiet. This love letter fell out of his desk in front of everyone. And it's addressed to Leon Carter. The teacher pointed at the incriminating evidence. A promising student in our grade. Dominic's face darkened as he scanned the letter. After a moment, he removed the watch from his left wrist. Since Leon's so promising, it's best not to make a big deal out of this. He slid the Rolex across the desk. Wouldn't you agree? Judging by the teacher's feigned reluctance, I knew he was going to take the bribe. Ahem, Elliot, you can return to class now. The teacher waved me off, clearly intending to handle things privately with Dominic. I was about to bolt when Dominic called my name, Elliot Reed. I froze. In the past, no matter how much trouble I caused at school, as long as I wasn't hurt, he never cared. He would just send Walter, the family butler, to apologize and pay for any damages. But today, not only had he come in person, but he had also used my full name for the first time. I had a bad feeling about this. Turning around, I noticed he had loosened his tie and unbuttoned the top 2 buttons of his shirt. I vaguely recalled overhearing his employees the last time I was in his office. With a face like Mr. Reed's, he could make a killing in a club, even if he lost everything else. He glanced at me, his voice slow and deliberate. Remember to be home for dinner tonight. It sounded more like a punishment. A chill ran down my spine as I fled back to class. 2. People stared at me curiously as I walked down the hallway. Are you okay? I heard your uncle came. Should I confess? My classmate, Maisie, leaned over her desk, poking my arm. She had a crush on Leon Carter for a long time and had even written a steamy story featuring him, despite appearing to be a good girl. But she dropped the story halfway through. I didn't think much when I took the blame. Wasn't it normal for 2 guys to write a little smut? But I didn't expect the teacher to call Dominic or escalate the situation by accusing me of harassing a good student. I'm fine. Focus on your class. I pulled my jacket over my head, anxiously sleeping until the end of the school day. When I woke up, Maisie was gone, leaving behind a handwritten notebook of practice problems and a few scattered candies. I stuffed everything into my backpack. As soon as I stepped outside, I saw Walter waiting in the hallway. The car ride was quiet as a funeral procession. I tentatively asked about Dominic's reaction, receiving only a "good luck" glance. I gritted my teeth. It would probably just be a beating, after all. But when I opened the front door at home, I was more terrified than if I'd seen a ghost. 3. Dominic was standing with his back to the door, the sleeves of his black shirt rolled up to his elbows, a gray apron tied around his waist, busy in the kitchen. Hearing me enter, he didn't turn around. You're back. Dinner's ready. Dominic was usually swamped at work. I was normally asleep by the time he got home in the early morning. It had been over a month since we'd seen each other. Dominic was home early, cooking. Was I dreaming? What are you waiting for? Get the silverware. Still dazed, my knees weakened when I crouched down to find the silverware. I almost fell if I hadn't grabbed the hem of Dominic's pants. Dominic had long, slender legs. He didn't flinch as he stood in front of the cabinets. It shouldn't be so hard to find something. Dominic lowered his head to look at me through the gap between his arms, but his hands didn't stop moving. A faint scent drifted from above. Maybe it was my imagination, but Dominic's calf brushed against my side as he passed me. When you've got them, come over and sit down. Dominic removed the other chairs, leaving only the seat next to him. I had no choice. Walking halfway around the table, I grabbed the edge of my shirt and sat next to Dominic. I fidgeted with the hem. Uncle, actually, I don't like him anymore. Dominic had replaced his expensive watch with the cheap one I'd given him. It clashed with his 5-figure suit. His head was lowered, his eyelashes casting a shadow. He cut the steak slowly. You don't like him anymore. Does that mean you liked him before? I almost choked. Was he trying to smear my name? Dominic set down his utensils, his large hand clamping around the back of my neck, his calloused thumb gently kneading. I instinctively flinched, but he pulled me back. The crisp scent of pine filled my nostrils. His voice was hoarse, with an undercurrent of coercion. What are you dodging? Dominic's hand slowly released me, moving down to pat my back, as if it were the simplest of gestures between uncle and nephew. At your age, it's normal to like someone. He sounded like an understanding parent. Dominic used 2 fingers to push the sliced steak towards me. Eat up. You've lost weight. He didn't seem to take my little escapade to heart. Dominic hadn't finished high school before being brought back to the Reed family. He'd shed a layer of skin in the muck before clawing his way to where he was today. High school romance was probably nothing to him. I ate, comforting myself. I soon finished the steak. As I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my stomach, I realized Dominic was gone. Full? The hoarse voice came from behind me. I sat bolt upright. Dominic stood half leaning against the doorframe, a belt in his hand, staring at me intently. If you're full, come here and kneel. My legs went weak. I remembered Dominic only hitting me once before. It was around the time I was in 8th grade. Someone claimed they knew where my parents were, and I foolishly followed them. I only realized later that I was just a pawn used by Dominic's rivals to control him. They used me to force Dominic to give up a plot of land in West City. It was the first major deal Dominic had taken on after returning to the Reed family. Losing the land meant everything he had built in the Reed family would be overturned. That night, after bringing me home, Dominic almost beat me to death with his belt. I gripped the edge of the table. The smooth marble corner dug painfully into my palm, and I instinctively retreated. Uncle, I've really changed. I don't like guys. Hearing my unconvincing excuse, Dominic's expression turned colder. I was known for skipping class and fighting. If Jason saw me acting like this in front of Dominic, he'd laugh at me for years. But even small-time thugs were afraid of big-time thugs. If Jason had ever seen Dominic angry, he would kneel faster than I did. The bedroom light was off, a faint glow filtering in from the living room. Dominic stood framed in that square of light. Head lowered, I obediently shuffled into the bedroom, kneeling by the bed. When Dominic wasn't home, I would often hug his pillow. I had fallen asleep in his room last night. The velvet pillow was imbued with both our scents, making it hard to breathe. I was wrong. Uncle. I changed my strategy. It was better to admit my mistakes than to try to justify myself. Maybe I would suffer less. Dominic tugged at his belt, the ominous snap, snap echoing in the darkness. Damn it, why did this belt sound so sturdy? I won't buy him this brand next time. The folded belt was hard, sliding along my spine from the back of my neck to the most sensitive part of my tailbone. Dominic deliberately tapped me there, chuckling coldly. You don't like guys anymore? I shook my head, voice muffled. I don't like them anymore. I don't like them. Does that mean you liked them before? He repeated his tactic, twisting my words again. Dominic was doing this on purpose. I seemed destined to get a beating today. I might as well let him vent his anger. I shifted on the wool rug, bracing for the punishment. But the pain didn't come. Instead, Dominic's voice sounded from behind me. Leon's calloused hands grasped my lower back, the curves of my waist seeming to suck on his fingers. I realized halfway through that it was part of Maisie's steamy story. When I took the blame, Maisie tugged on my sleeve and whispered, "This part is a little rough." My writing skills had always been awful, so I couldn't tell if it was rough or not. But this was too rough. The footsteps behind me grew closer, amplifying every sensation. An arm wrapped around my waist, fingers tightening. Dominic seemed to be searching for my waist. Sucking on his fingers? How do you suck? Dominic pulled back his free hand, and the belt landed hard on my upturned butt. It stung. I flinched, and Dominic pulled me back even harder. Not very realistic. Dominic seemed to kneel behind me, his breath pressing down like a spiderweb. Or is he the only one who can make you like that? He nudged my lower back with his knee, demanding an answer. I gritted my teeth, each breath shaking. Dominic might as well beat me. I'd rather die. Receiving no answer, Dominic stood up. He was never a very patient man. Take off your jacket. Dominic lit a cigarette, pacing restlessly behind me. He seemed to realize that I wasn't someone who could be easily controlled. Halfway through removing my jacket, he suddenly changed his mind, like an angry parent not knowing where to start disciplining their child. Never mind, bite it. The jacket was halfway off, stuck at my shoulder blades. I cursed under my breath, obediently biting the hem. The rough fabric brushed against my back, and I gasped. Damn it. That jerk Jason grabbed me in the locker room earlier when I was changing into my sports uniform. It still hurt. Biting? Saliva wet the hem. I arched my back, offering Dominic a perfect target. Dominic took a drag of his cigarette and spat out a curse, his voice forced. Your little boyfriend is pretty wild, huh? I looked up at him, confused, still with the hem in my mouth, revealing a sliver of my stomach. Dominic put out his cigarette on the door, the sparks jumping before extinguishing completely, a wisp of blue smoke curling up. This letter. Read it. Dominic threw the damned story at my face, his hands shaking as he unbuttoned his shirt. Read. You're not sleeping until you've read it 100 times. I watched Dominic storm off, thinking he'd finally lost it. If he wanted me to read, I would. 5. Unsurprisingly, I was late the next day. Despite the rug, my knees were bruised. And my butt throbbed. Dominic was already gone when I left. I walked into the classroom, clutching my butt. Maisie gave me a sympathetic look. I straightened immediately. It didn't hurt that much. SOSO. Really SOSO. Maisie handed me a piece of candy. I didn't think you were coming today. Did he hit you last night? I gritted my teeth and shook my head. Maisie sighed in relief. That's good. Oh, by the way, Leon was looking for you today. Leon Carter? Who? Why did that name sound familiar? Sucking on the candy, it suddenly hit me. Oh my god, wasn't that the name of the character from the story I had to read last night? Ahem, what did he want? Maisie's eyes clouded over. He didn't say. He left when you weren't here. After such an incident, it would be difficult for the two of them to be together. As I was about to comfort Maisie, I looked up and saw the person in question standing at the door. Leon knocked on the door expressionlessly. Come out for a minute. Unlike a playboy like me, Leon had fought his way through the academic battlefield. He was among the top 20 in the world in the math competition. No wonder the homeroom teacher protected him so much. I followed Leon, stopping in a storage room. I didn't brake in time and bumped into his back. The cheap, clean scent of laundry detergent wafted over, and I unconsciously inhaled. Smelled pretty good. I should buy some for Dominic someday. Leon turned around, frowning at my actions. Feeling guilty, I touched the tip of my nose. Did you want something? Leon slammed the competition problems onto the desk behind me, stirring up dust. He trapped me between the desk and his arms. You like me? Huh? Had the news already reached his ears? If I top you, can you lend me some money? What? I wasn't that smart to begin with, and I felt like Dominic had made me stupid. Before I could process what he was saying, Leon's hand was already on the drawstring of my uniform pants, about to. I slapped him. My hand tingled, and my voice trembled. I can lend you money, but no handjobs. My slap knocked Leon's head aside, his cheek swelling high, with a kind of broken, disheveled beauty. I almost immediately thought of the day Dominic was brought back to the Reed family. Dominic was an illegitimate child raised in an orphanage all his life. The Reed family always knew about him but never brought him back. If my dad hadn't broken his leg during a drunken high-speed chase after my mom, Dominic might never have known about his heritage. He looked the same the day he returned to the Reed family. His short hair was neatly cut. He said, "Thank you," but his eyes constantly looked upward like a wolf cub. The Reed family was always high and mighty. They abandoned Dominic in the orphanage when they didn't need him. When they needed him, they disrupted his future, forcing everything onto him. Dominic was a good student, but he never went to college. The Reed family threw him into the mud, where he would die if he couldn't climb out. Sometimes I think he should hate me. Everyone in the Reed family was a murderer. Leon grabbed the hem of his pants. Thanks. 100,000. I'll pay you back as soon as possible. I remembered Maisie saying that Leon had a gambling-addicted father. No matter how rotten a person was, they seemed to have the right to do what they wanted in front of their children. I was still reeling, clutching the drawstrings in my hand, when he opened the door and passed me. I looked at him. I won't tell anyone about this. Leon didn't stop, grabbing his competition problems and leaving. Watching him walk away, I realized it wasn't hard to understand why Maisie liked someone like him. 6. I used to stay at school occasionally. But after that incident, Dominic started sending Walter to pick me up every day. When I got home, Marie, the housekeeper, was still cleaning. Staying home now? Marie chatted as she cooked. I lay on the sofa, using my backpack as a pillow. Yeah, I'll be home every day now. That's good. The two of you are big men and rarely come home. There's no life in this house. Marie was a chatterbox, always ready to talk. I squeezed the edge of the sofa. Actually, this house used to be lively. My dad fell in love with my mom at first sight, but my mom had a boyfriend. That jerk forced them to break up, marrying my mom and using me as a bargaining chip to keep her. But I knew sooner than anyone that my mom didn't like me. I was proof of her out-of-control life, proof of her sins. I grew up twisted like that. 7. I'd been working hard on schoolwork, and I fell asleep on the sofa within minutes. I woke up to the sound of the door opening. Marie, are you leaving? Dominic didn't like other people in the house. Marie didn't live here, she came twice a day to clean and cook. I rubbed my eyes and looked toward the door, seeing a drunken figure. Dominic was home. Leon wanted to borrow money. I scraped together what I had, totaling 70,000. Dominic didn't shortchange me, but he didn't leave much cash around either. I still needed $3,000. I had to ask Dominic. I staggered to my feet, but the drunk pushed me back onto the sofa. Dominic had a high tolerance for alcohol. He rarely got this drunk, except when he'd first returned to the Reed family. He swayed, pressing down on me, his breath a dark, suffocating cloud. His chest rose and fell irregularly, breathing deeply and shakily. How much had he drunk? I pushed his shoulder, but he held me tighter. Uncle, I want to buy something. About $3,000. Dominic wasn't a miser. He was a big spender. The last time I asked him for money was his birthday last year. I won a basketball championship, and I used Dominic's money to treat everyone. I had a few $1,000s left, so I bought him a watch at the mall. Dominic often had social engagements. He wouldn't wear such a cheap watch. He smiled at the watch and said, using my money to buy me a gift. That's something. I never saw that watch again. If I hadn't sent the watch away temporarily, he probably wouldn't have remembered. Dominic nuzzled me like a cat. My birthday isn't here yet. Dominic's hands wandered. When his palm touched the scabbed red mark on my back, his fingers stopped. Elliot, he said softly, a touch of grievance in his voice. Break up with your boyfriend. Dominic raised his head, his cheeks flushed, but his eyes were a little clearer. I don't guarantee I won't do something stupid. Boyfriend? God is my witness. I skip class and get into fights every day. How did I suddenly become a seductress? I pushed Dominic's shoulder. His eyes were unfocused like egg yolks. You're the one with a boyfriend. Dominic took a breath. I don't. Let me check and see if you have one. Drunks had no logic. As he spoke, he tried to pull down my pants. I swear, what is it with you people? Why does everyone want to see my dick? Dominic. I gripped the drawstrings, desperately defending the last line, shouting until my voice cracked. Dominic got up, rubbing his face. He seemed to be sobering up, but his face was frighteningly cold. 1? 2? Wasn't he drunk? I pushed him away and ran upstairs. Never argue with a drunk. Dominic taught me that during social engagements. 8. Drunk people reacted slowly, after all. Dominic had just reached the second floor when I slammed the door shut. I ignored him, lying on the bed and playing with my phone. Leon had sent a message an hour ago. You didn't take your math notes. The exam is next week. Do you want me to bring them over? Ever since I lent him money, he had been letting me borrow his notes every now and then. Maisie saw this and wanted them too. So I didn't refuse. Just as I was about to reply, he sent another message with his location. Is your house here? At that moment, the doorbell rang downstairs. Crap. Dominic was still downstairs. 9. When I went downstairs, the two of them were already sitting on the sofa. Leon's uniform was washed pale, he was sitting very upright, holding a notebook. Dominic had finished the hangover soup on the table, fastened his tie, and was pretending to doze off. The coldness emanating from him was terrifying. I told him you wouldn't come out. Call him and see if he answers. My phone was always on silent, so I often missed Dominic's calls. Dominic noticed this habit when I first started living at the dorms, so he stopped calling me. Leon had never dealt with people like my uncle and didn't even recognize the hostility in his words. He really called. Dominic pursed his lips, the drunken flush gone, his face frighteningly cold. By sheer bad luck, I accidentally hit the answer button as I walked downstairs with my phone. The echo coming from the speaker made me feel like I was back in the situation where I had been caught. Was this really happening? I hung up the phone, flustered. Leon, seeing me come down, handed me the notebook and left. Uncle, I'll see him out. I forced myself not to look at Dominic, practically staring a hole through Leon's back. I can ride my bike home. You don't need to see me out, Leon said, pointing to the bicycle. My mind was far away, but my feet followed him. Oh. Elliot, Leon said, looking into my eyes under the streetlights, your uncle likes you. Bang. I dropped my phone. What? I tried to force a smile, but I was sure it looked terrifying. Leon was a bookworm, he didn't even know Maisie liked him. What did he know? The screen was broken. I flipped the phone over with my toe, kicking the culprit rock into the shadows. What did you say? I said, your uncle likes you. Leon, afraid I didn't hear him clearly, pointed behind me. Dominic was the only one inside that house now. Why would you say that? Leon interrupted me. Because I am. He paused and added, so are you, aren't you, Elliot? 10. I was nothing. Clutching the broken phone, I went back to the villa. Someone had turned off the lights. As soon as I entered, I was pinned against the door. The familiar scent hit me. It was the same shower gel as I used. I had lived with Dominic since my parents abandoned me. Over the years, we had become like water mixed with water. Dominic kissed me urgently, without any skill. He held the back of my neck, forcing me to tilt my chin and meet his kiss. Our tongues bumped together, like eating jelly. I grabbed Dominic's neck, but he laughed. What, are you staying pure for your boyfriend? Perhaps because of the alcohol, Dominic's voice trembled. I took a deep breath. No, I wanted to ask if we have any condoms at home. If not, get off me. Dominic froze for a moment, and then kissed me in the dark, his hand wandering along my waist. I'll have them delivered now. Do you think you can last until then? I didn't last. Dominic forced me to recite the love letter and recreate the scenes in it. When my reaction wasn't right, he gritted his teeth and spanked me. Elliot, no, do it again. Is he better, or am I? That bastard Dominic. I wanted to kill him. 11. The next day, I was late, unsurprisingly. That jerk Dominic had dirted my uniform. I just threw on a t-shirt. Ever since Leon started letting me borrow his notes, I had felt too embarrassed to skip class. Whenever I saw him while scaling the wall, I felt guilty. The only 2 times I had skipped class were because of Dominic. It was all because of him. When I walked into the classroom, clutching my butt, Maisie almost dropped her pen. Is your uncle that vindictive? It was so long ago. Why is he only coming after you now? I didn't want to keep his reputation safe. Dominic is a jerk. He's sneaky and cunning. Just as I was getting into it, I received a transfer of $3,000. But, at least he has a conscience. I immediately transferred the $3,000 to Leon, sending a message, $100,000 is complete. Leon didn't reply. As I stuffed my phone back into my desk, I realized. Wait, was he giving me money after sleeping with me? Was he treating me like a male escort? 12. Elliot, want to play basketball? Jason came to find me with a basketball. No. I lay on the desk, full of resentment. Dominic, if you dare treat me like a male escort, I'll kill you. Jason tossed his hair. What's wrong? I just accidentally grabbed you that one time. We're brothers, I shouldn't still be mad, I'll check if it's healed. Jason reached for my shirt, the shameless, clueless straight man. Ouch, damn it. I pushed Jason's hand away, finally pulling down my shirt, and quickly covered his mouth with my other hand. Jason's eyes widened. No way, Elliot, your girl is feisty. Thanks, I really appreciate it. I walked him out of the classroom, still covering his mouth. Jason wouldn't shut up. Why didn't you tell me? Who's the girl? I rested my arms on the railing, not knowing where to start. I let Jason guess. I heard you got caught having a school romance while you were out. Is that true? Jason became more excited, patting my shoulder. Is it Leon Carter? Is that him? Annoyed, I followed his gaze. Down at the school gate, Leon was surrounded by a group of people. I recognized the leader. His dad was a debt collector, known as a troublemaker at the neighboring school. Last time he called me a bastard, so I stabbed him in the back of his hand with a pen. I narrowed my eyes. Leon couldn't even handle my slap. I don't know if he'd live to pay me back. 13. Chen, is your hand healed that fast? Leon had been pushed against a wall at the end of the alley. My notebook was scattered on the ground. Chen lowered his hand, turning around. I was leaning against the wall, twirling my keys. If my butt didn't still hurt, I would have punched him. That shameless Dominic. When I made money, I'd throw $3,000 in his face and make him serve me. Chen's left hand was still bandaged. Seeing me come to die, he cracked his neck. Elliot, you dare show your face? Why wouldn't I? You still have one hand. Chen was clearly angered by my provocation, biting his lip and lunging at me. Elliot, you motherfucker. Chen was always outside, and had a debt collector dad for role model. He was faster than me with my aching butt. I dodged a few punches, then started to struggle. Jason, if you don't come, I'm done for. I yelled into the sky. Chen, thinking I had called for backup, stared upwards. A bird flew across the narrow sky. Chen chuckled. Ha, Elliot, who are you fooling? The school doesn't care about these things, they avoid them. Chen slowly approached. You crippled my left hand. I won't be greedy, I'll cripple your left leg, and we'll be even. He raised the blade, aiming at my lower leg. I remembered that my dad had his left leg amputated. He killed himself in his wheelchair not long after. I heard the wind rushing in my ears. Click. Someone broke Chen's wrist and the knife fell. Dominic was in front of me with a dark expression. Waste of space. Dominic's voice was cold. Jason followed him, glanced at Chen's crew. Yeah, Elliot, why can't you beat even one guy? Dominic tilted his head. Talking to you. Why did it take you so long to find a place? Jason stopped dribbling. Hey, I'm the one who called you. It was me. Chen, even though he was a thug, knew that he should run from a jerk like Dominic. Get up. Dominic offered me his hand. The callus on his hand felt rough. My butt still hurt. I slowly got up, getting a glare from Dominic. You're such a hero. Dominic pulled me to the car. Let's get you checked for a hero complex. As the door was about to close, Leon grabbed the frame. 14. Leon had scraped his arm, falling and blood was everywhere. I got robbed, thanks for the money, and thanks for what you did today. Leon spoke concisely, but said a lot today. Dominic's face darkened with each word. Jason saw the situation and went to take Leon to the school nurse. Just me and Dominic were left. Dominic licked his teeth, unbuttoning his cuffs. You gave him the money? I haven't asked him about treating me like a male escort. Why was he questioning me? I lent him money, so what? You gave me the money, it's mine. I was nervous, gripping the seat belt. How much? 100,000. Dominic unbuckled his seat belt. You gave all the money to that pretty boy? Do you have money for food? I couldn't tell Dominic's mood. 100,000 wasn't a large sum for him, and he gave it to me. Elliot, you really did it. Dominic sat on my lap, patting my face. The passenger seat was small, and two big men were too close. Dominic, what are you doing? This is outside. I subconsciously tried to cover my butt, but found I couldn't move. Dominic pulled out his tie, tying my wrists together. Did I say what I was going to do? He tied it slowly. Or, are you waiting for me to do something to you here? I tried to squeeze my legs together, but he pushed them open. Elliot, I have limited patience. I'll say this one last time, Dominic kissed me roughly. Break up with your pretty boy, or I'll lose it. I almost forgot. Dominic and my dad were half-brothers, sharing the same genes for coercion. I called him uncle, he bit my chin, and his voice got angry. Elliot, don't call me that. He knew that our names shouldn't be together. 15. Dominic, if you dare treat me like a male escort, I'll make you regret it. Dominic ended up taking me to the hospital for a full-body checkup. I didn't have a hero complex, but I ran into someone I hadn't seen in a long time. Dominic went to get the car. I saw my mom at the registration desk. She saw me. We looked at each other, amidst the crowds. It felt like we last met yesterday. What's wrong? She sat next to me, but didn't look at me. My throat tightened. I licked my lips. Routine checkup. What about you? I had so many questions. Why did she disappear after my dad killed himself? Why didn't they like me? Was I not worth being loved? Not even a little? She lowered her head, and tears fell on her hand. Actually. She looked at me, her lips trembling. You look a lot like him. Him? No one ever said I looked like my dad. Suddenly, I understood what she was saying. Have you ever wondered why the Reed family didn't groom you as an heir? I pinched my palm. She didn't stop. Because you aren't a Reed at all. Even that grandfather-grandson relationship was a lie. I was already pregnant when I got married, but I didn't know. Like Dominic's father, I thought you were a Reed, so I didn't want to see you. The mechanical voice echoed in the hall, like time flowing backwards. Too bad time can't go back. He was always controlling. He could only sit in a wheelchair after the car accident. Suicide was inevitable. Didn't I run? Why wouldn't I? She gave a bitter laugh, wiping her tears. I didn't blame her for running. Why didn't she ever think about taking me with her? As if hearing my thoughts, she added, if I knew you weren't his child, I wouldn't have taken you. My heart stopped beating. I stared at her, not even noticing Dominic standing at the door. Elliot, I neglected you. I couldn't help it. She blinked back tears. I don't know how to make it up to you. I'd rather keep making mistakes. She never considered my feelings or my situation in the Reed family. She didn't want to admit her past. Even if that past included her and her lover's child. Suddenly, I remembered Dominic taking me to a parent-teacher conference. 16. He hadn't found his place in the Reed family. He was disheveled when he arrived, his hair was messy. He sat next to me, with an unlit cigarette in his mouth. I had a hard time connecting him with the student who almost went to Tsinghua. Dominic tapped my barely passing test score. Not bad. You passed. We'll have something special for dinner. The teacher was yelling on stage. Dominic was asking me what kind of steak I wanted. Annoyed, I said medium rare. He only cooked medium rare steak after that. That night, I asked as I ate my bloody steak, don't you think I'm a bad kid for fighting and skipping class? Dominic unbuttoned his collar. Why do you fight? They say my parents didn't want me. Good. Practice if you can't win. What about skipping class? Going to the cemetery to see my dad, going to the police station to ask about my mom. Go ahead. Want a car? Oh, I forgot you can't drive. My tears had dried up. The speaker was calling my mom's name. Like many years ago, I called her in my dreams. Unlike then, she never answered. Goodbye, take care. I shook her hand. It was cold. Just like in my dreams. 17. Dominic took a long time to get the car, parking in front of the hospital. Dominic didn't say a word on the way home. As soon as I got in the house, I pinned him to the door, grabbing his neck and biting his jaw. Dominic, you can't just sleep with me and then dump me. If I hadn't been held back, and was old enough, I'd put you in jail. You know that? Dominic didn't say yes or no. His lips parted, revealing a little of his tongue. You knew I wasn't a reed, didn't you? Dominic finally said, guessed. He knew it all along. I was angrier and grabbed his tie. Why did you pretend? Dominic easily lifted my legs, pushing me on the sofa. Dominic said, I wasn't pretending. He had the audacity to act wronged. The study at the end of the hall. I looked up. That study was always locked. Dominic never let me in. Dominic continued, you don't want to see what's inside. Dominic grabbed my hand, loosening his tie. You called me uncle all these years, so I treated myself as your elder. You know what he was like, so you should know what I am like. Now Dominic was biting my collarbone. Since you provoked me, don't think about leaving. Don't make me lock you up. Dominic's breath fell near my ear. Elliot, I'll give you one last chance. Do you want to go with her? He was worried about that. I wrapped the tie around his neck, pulling him closer. Do you want me to go? Dominic didn't answer. He knew that she never thought about taking me. I had no home. Since I moved here, I only had him. Do you want the truth or a lie? A lie. I hope you go with her, live a normal life, far away from me. What's the truth? Lock you up, force medicine down your throat every day, so you can only see me. Dominic was like a drunk again, grabbing my neck. I couldn't see anything but him. We were like two beasts in the mud, tearing, licking, never satisfied. The moon rose. Shadows danced. Dominic put the key in my teeth. The cold key pressed against my numb tongue, and I almost lost consciousness. Elliot, don't fall asleep. The night is young.